with that, we are live. Welcome, one and all, to another inspiring Light 'em Up live show. It's the day before the PCA trade show, and still, we are here, we're going live, and we have a very special guest with us here today, Mr. Luciano Meirelles from Ace Prime Cigars and Pichardo factory. So, welcome and hello to the world, to everybody joining us here today, and thank you so much for being here with us. Um, Luciano, it's such a pleasure to have you. And I know you're still in California, I believe. I'm still in Vienna, and in 36 hours, we'll actually meet in Las Vegas.
I'm very much looking forward to Reinhard. Yes, I'm in California, just 3 hours away from Vegas. We should be actually getting there tonight, and I'm very much looking forward to meet you, to see you in person, and everybody else that's coming to the show.
Wonderful. So, Luciano, let me start with this. Like so many other cigar professionals, your vita reads like a novel, and it's full of different pathways, crossroads, and really interesting turns. Do you feel that like finally you found home along that journey, nestled into the world of premium cigars now?
It's such a good question, uh, which kind of provokes a lot of thinking. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't think I have a settling soul. I think uh, what kind of drives me, it's always to create, is always uh, to be innovative somehow. And I think Cigars proportions me the opportunity to develop new products, to create new avenues, and I'm very much passionate about it. But yeah, my life, it's been an adventure, since very young age, and I'm blessed. I took a uh, different path. Uh, 15 years ago, I basically confronted my own demons, and I realized I was making a lot of money but losing my family, and that kind of sparked my decision to get into the cigar business. I took a year sabbatical and really decided to give more time to my daughters. I have three girls. They're now grown ups, but at that time they needed more of my attention, and I slowly got into something that has been always my passion, which is cigars.
Now, the interesting component about that is you developed and established four investments funds, I believe, and many different companies in those past years, including international green funds, and it's diverse, it's multifaceted, and there's various different inspirations and backgrounds. How does that all culminate, come together, and somehow change and inspire the way you think about the premium cigar industry, especially when you compare it to a more traditional approach that maybe other people in the industry would have taken?
And that's also a very, very good question. I think uh, the whole concept of uh, the whole concept of uh, creating, it's something that always somehow was the was what kind of oriented my decisions in life. I believe when I got into the financial world and I created investment funds, was always with the idea that something good would come out of it. I need meaning in things that I'm involved with, and that's why I believe um, the funds and all the private equity that we got involved in was very successful, because not because of me. I think it's because of the some I believe supernatural factors, which actually are natural factors. I think when you plant good things, you harvest good things, right? Uh, many religions say that, not just Christianism. I believe that. I'll give an example. Like when we're working expanding companies in South America, or was working with FIFA. Um, the goal was always to somehow bring some development to this Latin American countries that need jobs, that needed opportunities. So we always targeted, places where we know an impact would be created, jobs would be created, and that was kind of the driving force to for me to dedicate, a lot of time in doing this. And I think naturally things worked out. So we created the first green fund in Brazil almost over a decade ago, or more, more than 17 years ago. And then yeah, and I think it's all connected. Answer your question, being more direct. I think it's all connected. I think I still love to think out of the box and develop, new ideas, and somehow try to help our industry too, and support, our association in ways that we can improve our market. I mean, there's so much to be done. If you look at all the good cigars we smoke, they all come from third world countries, from countries in development. I'll give you Nicaragua, for example. The level of poverty in Nicaragua, it's people don't even imagine. I mean, some of you probably visit Esteli or visit Nicaragua, but most of the people have no idea of the sacrifices and the amount of labor that's involved in the cigars, and how these people live. How they really pursue their career, their lives. What's the average salary of a worker in the fields in Nicaragua or in the factory? So can they survive? I mean, there's a lot of questions that I believe people try to avoid to ask. I actually love to talk about it and confront these things. And of course, we cannot solve all the issues in the world. We just try to do our part to inspire other people to do the same, and treat people with dignity, and give them opportunity. So I think it's all connected, brother. It's all connected.
That's actually a very wonderful point that you bring up there. And maybe for all the people who are less familiar with your history and with Ace Prime and Pichardo in general, what's interesting about the story is, unlike a lot of brand owners and people in the industry that actually start with a brand as a brand owner, you decided to venture into the factory component first, and only later started to bring your own cigars to the market. How, why that move? And I know that your inspiration and your connection with Ernesto Perez Carrillo had a lot to do with that. But maybe you can explain to all our viewers and to me a little more about how that actually all came together for you.
I think I kind of somehow put myself vulnerable here, because I told you exactly the reason why I got into the cigar industry. I was actually doing the wrong thing. I was traveling all over the world. I was spending a lot of time. I remember, especially the last 3 years that I was involved in with the previous business. I remember like sleeping in airplanes and waking up in different countries, and sometimes take me like a few seconds to realize where I was. Flew like 1.2 million miles every year. And out of the 365 days, spent maybe, I don't know, 60 or 70 days with my family and out there. So I was looking for simplicity. I think that's the answer to your question, because when I got into manufacturing cigars, Ernesto introduced me to Pichardo. And Pichardo had recently fled Cuba to live in Brazil, and he had a meeting with Ernie. Ernie was getting really busy. He was just recently creating Tabacalera Alianza, and he got the La Historia out. And because my initial idea was for Ernie to kind of blend a cigar for me, and then I would, develop something from there. But then I met Pichardo, and Pichardo was a guy who who created the blend of the Partagas Series E and D that, that's one of the top selling cigars in the world. Very, very humble guy, who was just very good at agricultural, the agricultural aspect of the business. He was very good in developing, good seeds, and very good in blending. And I looked at him and I said, "Do you want to start a business?" So we went to Nicaragua, started in a small garage with 2 tables, and then we started just making cigars for other people. We first started with a few clients that he had in Brazil, and then we grew up and got new contracts to a point where 5 years later we're working for a major cigar company who owned several brands, and we start making cigars for other people. We became known in Esteli for being good cigar makers, good cigar constructors. And we decided to never compete with our clients. So we never thought about actually launch our own brands. It was always to serve our clients and serve the best. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why Ace Prime is being successful right now too. I think it's because when we decided to get into the business of creating our own brands and distribute our own cigars, we had so many good friends in the industry, so many good clients that they vouched for us. And it's funny, if you Google Ace Prime, there's always someone of the industry saying something good. Those guys make good cigars, or those guys are. So I think that helped a lot too. And then it was only in 2017 that my friend Tiago kind of convinced me and Pichardo to create our own brands and launch our own cigars. And after 2017, it took us 2 years preparing that launch. And only 2019 at PCA that we relaunched our own brands. And then the story. Then comes the marriage with Crown Heads, and here we are.
And we'll certainly go into that in just a few seconds. By the way, I want to apologize for my kind of weird lighting today, but I'm just facing a wonderful sunset here in Austria and in Vienna, so it probably looks a bit weird, but at least it's thoroughly enjoyable with a wonderful cigar here. Luciano, so you mentioned all these sort of landmarks and those big evolution steps with the factory, and then with your own cigar line, and with the own brand of cigars. Do you think that it could even be beneficial to come into the cigar as an outsider, because you have a fresh set of eyes, because you have a fresh approach, and you start things anew? And in particular, when you teamed up with Pichardo for the factory, how did those operations change, and how did you challenge the traditional way that Pichardo was probably looking at the industry?
I think Pichardo and I had two things in common. Pichardo never had a business on the cigar business. He worked for a cigar factory. He worked for Habanos SA for many years. So for him was something new. For me, it was like I said, almost like a simplification of my life. Was downsizing, almost like reducing the energy that I was putting into other things other than my family. And it's always weird to talk about ourselves, right? But I think you're right. I think the fact that I came from outside, from a different world, it helped. And it helped, of course, because you see things a little different. I think sometimes, and this is not just in the premium cigars, in all our businesses, all businesses that exist, sometimes we find ourselves in bubbles, and we lose track of reality. We lose track of the dimension that we live in. It's funny when you go into the trade shows or you go into cigar events and you see all the cigar celebrities, and even like with us, I find it funny sometimes. I go into cigar stores and people asking me to kind of sign boxes and take pictures, and I look at it. I say, well, this is the bubble I'm living in now, because if you look at like the relevant and I mean, amazing guys, you know, just like Carlito Fuentes, Rocky Patel, you know, Jorge Padron, good friends of mine. But in the reality of real world, if they walk out there, people don't have a clue who they are, you know, because the consuming market for premium cigars is less than 5% of the population of the United States. So they have no idea who they are. And coming from a different perspective, where, especially on because of the nature of my business, I ended up having to relate to different layers of our society and crossing different segments of our society. I think that kind of helped me a little bit. I found a lot of people somehow restricted to certain actions because of that kind of bubble we live in. And again, it's not a criticism, because this is a reality in the industry of liquor, in the industry of clothing, anywhere. It's just you know, that's how it is. We have to try to not fall for the same trap and think in a different way. But so I was blessed, so I didn't have to push too much effort. It's like what I tell to my daughters, especially because they're so intelligent, and sometimes they complain that I don't compliment them when they come with high, you know, high scores, if they accomplish something. And I said, well, it's your obligation. You're so smart, so intelligent. You know, you gotta do it. So I believe that God gives great responsibilities for all of us, and we gotta just kind of, you know, pursue our mission, man.
Well, I can so much relate to that. My life has always been, you know, challenged in many different ways, and I also had to explore different pathways and industries, coming from a hospitality and wine and spirits background, venturing into experiential design and cigars now in particular. I always find that no matter what it is that I do in life, it inspires all the other routes as well. And I'm curious as to whether you think there is certain core principles and values and beliefs that you always carry with you, and that no matter which industry and which bubble, as you call it, you find yourself in, those will always apply and also be the core foundation, the fundamentals of success, whatever that means.
I think I could point out to several. I'm gonna be a little more philosophical here. I think ethics, it's a very important value, and also uh, it sounds maybe naive, but truth is extremely important. So I think the world is craving uh, real things. Uh, it's almost like people don't believe in anything. So people don't trust politicians. People don't trust political leaders, religious leaders. People don't trust religion. People don't trust each other anymore. Uh, you know, you always have to prove that you're trustworthy in order to develop a relationship. So that's what marketing is challenged with, I believe, these days, because I think trying to sell, uh, people are so overwhelmed, uh, sensorially speaking, so overwhelmed with information, with feelings and experiences, and you know, information is so accessible that it's hard to really catch people's attention. And I think there is a craving out there, and it's craving for something you can trust. I think whatever industry, whatever you do, if you are able to inspire people, if you're able to offer truth within what you do and with what you offer, with no bullshit, I think you're going to be extremely successful in this next decade, because people are craving truth, people are craving reality. I'll give a very good example in because you said you come from the wine and spirits background. If you look at the growth of consumption in wine, in North America, and in Europe's a little different. I have the European background too. We drink wine since I was probably my mom's womb. So you know, we drink wine all the time. But in America, you see this kind of steady growth of wine consumption in the past 2 decades because information became available. A lot of people believe that cigars sell because of its mystery. So people back in the days, they didn't know how a cigar was manufactured or where the leaves came from. They all referred to, oh, these are Cubans, or these are cigars. But where it's from, I don't know. It's just cigars, you know. So it used to be like that with wine. But you see how in a well-informed consumer, he starts consuming more and more of the product that he knows. So people wants to know what they're putting in their mouths. I think companies who are willing to disclose blends and disclose, construction process of the cigars and are willing to provide real information to their consumers, I think they will succeed because people will want to know what they're smoking. Again, and it's not a popular opinion because if you look at all the movements towards against regulation, and it's not the first time I say this, I don't agree that the FDA should regulate cigars, but I do agree that cigars should be regulated somehow. And I think it's the responsibility of our industry to create that narrative and create the boundaries and the parameters for that for that regulation. You know, I mean, I want to know. I smoke my cigars. I know exactly the level of pesticides that are used. If they're natural, if they're organic, I know how much nitrogen was used or fertilizer, other types of fertilizers that are used in my product. I don't know about everybody else. I don't know, what other manufacturers do. And again, you're putting a product, something in your mouth that, just like, you're eating anything, like a fruit, a vegetable, anything you consume. It's funny because we always want to know how many calories we have or how many. I think it's no different in cigars. It's a fermented product, so it needs to be treated as such. But when you go into the wine, you can always go to a certain point of disclosure because you just don't know exactly how each bottle will react to the temperature on the fermentation side. So they're not actually the same. So they change because the fermented product. Same with beer. So I believe, I know we can digress a little bit, but I believe that whoever offers the truth and information will succeed.
Now, I do not want my next question to sound controversial in any way, and quite the opposite. It's a most respectful angle that I'm taking here. But since you described that with your previous careers, where you found yourself in a place where you wanted to change things around, and on the other hand, you now mention that change in consumer behavior and how we all want to provide consumers with a new angle. Would you say that your venture into cigars was more of a selfish move in order to just do something for yourself, or did you have a particular disruptive element in mind that you wanted to offer to the cigar industry in order to change people's perspective in a certain way, or maybe a combination of both?
I think it is connected with a previous question you asked me, and it has to do with values, right? So I remember being like a 16 years old teenager. I loved basketball, and I had no idea what I was going to do at my future. And I happened to be raised by my grandparents. When I was born, my father was just 16 years old. My mom was 17. So I was basically raised with my uncle as a brother. And he always, when I would come and talk to him, he's such a wise man. He always tells me, whatever is in your hands, just do your best. Whatever's in your hands, just do your best and do what is right. And my grandfather, he was a professor, also a religious minister, and I always had a hard time with this whole religion thing. But that kind of advice really always resonated in my heart, and I pass it to my children as well. When you don't know, just do the right thing. And when I'm transitioning to the cigar industry, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I knew what I was not going to do with my life. I was blessed because I was able to have a sort of a early retirement, so I didn't have to kind of really struggle to survive. And I always believed that there was a reason, a purpose for that. And and I just saw myself into a situation, yes, looking for not the best for myself, but for my family, trying to do the right thing. I believe all of us, we try to do the right thing. I don't know how many of you here had family, but I was trying to protect my kids and correct some mistakes I made in my life. And when I did that, some good things happened, and I saw the opportunities. I believe our lives are not kind of black and white. I think we always have like an open field of possibilities, like what takes us to make certain decisions, what drives our hearts towards some decisions. It's what we have to always be revisiting and even define ourselves to make the right choices. So I don't think it's contradictory at all. I believe it's actually absolutely holistic and complementary.
I mentioned the word disruptive because you did a wonderful interview. Well, actually, two of them with Coop, who I admire and treasure a lot, and he's a dear friend also of the Light 'Em Up family. And there you spoke about the disruptive nature of Mil Diaz. You also mentioned one of the new releases that will sort of change people's perspective quite a bit. Do you think the cigar industry is such a traditional industry that's built on century-old knowledge being passed from generation to generation. Yet we all face the new realities of digital media, new ways of communicating, and there is disruptive elements that we all have to deal with. But do you think there's still like a lot of room for innovation, or do you much rather treasure the old and true and what the industry has always been about?
Well, I think it's always innovation. It's on the marketing aspects. All the players in this industry, they like to explore the family tradition because that's how they base their business. They created their business. That doesn't mean that this is the future of the business. And in fact, I'm not so clear about that future. I think some companies just cannot. So, I mean, it would be weird if tomorrow Carlito Fuentes decided to, I'm not gonna use the Fuentes name anymore. I'm not gonna use Arturo Fuentes anymore. I don't know. My company's gonna be called XYZ Cigars, whatever. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So it's part of who he is. It's his history, right? So you sell that. Now it's also weird to see new companies that come out there trying to prove or to artificially create that kind of traditional or tradition history, and it's artificial. People don't buy that. So I think the answer is being, again, it's about truth. It's being truthful to yourself and truthful to what you do. I think and when I think of the future of any consuming market, but especially our premium cigars, I think of pure innovation. If you look at how our society is changing, consuming habits, if you look at the target of premium cigars, the fastest growing consuming market of premium cigars are Black women from 20 to 30 something years old. I'm not saying that they are the largest, they are the fastest growing consuming market right now. It's an undeniable reality. So woman doesn't want, by the way, I love the Brothers of the Leaf, Sisters of the Leaf. I like this whole thing, but I don't think it's the future. I think the future is Family of the Leaf. I don't think there's no cigars for women. I think the woman wants to smoke the same cigar that the man is smoking. She wants to just kind of, I think the message is we're all equal. We all can do the same thing. We can all admire the same thing. This whole like thing of exploring sexuality in women and this whole like approach, I personally don't like. I dislike it a lot because I think it's going backwards. You know, the whole, and I have a lot of friends who do the sexy photos and stuff. I respect the artistic aspect of it. I just don't believe it's the future of our industry at all.
So when you speak about doing the right thing, you're very close to actually being vertically integrated as an operation because you operate your own fields in Ecuador, in Nicaragua. Do you think that is the ultimate path for a cigar company or a cigar brand to literally be in control of every single step of the process in order to ensure you're doing every single step correctly and the right way?
You will notice that I'm not very much conventional with my answers, and I try to be, as much accurate to the question. So I'm going to be absolutely sincere. I don't think so. I'll give you an example. I'll talk about a very good friend of mine, Skip Martin from Roma Craft. Skip Martin, the first thing he says is, I don't want to grow tobacco. I don't want to ever have to walk into a tobacco field in my life. And then I try to understand why. I said, but why? Because he doesn't like it. I understand. But also because he made a decision to go to different suppliers that he trusts, that he controls, that he knows will deliver the tobacco that he wants with the right fermentation, with the right quality, that he inspected, that he trusts, and you buy that tobacco and build the blends you want. If you look at I don't know, any car industry, the car industries, they don't build a plastic injection factory and then a silicium processing factory and then a glass factory. No, they outsource everything and they build the best cars in the world. So I know I'm speaking against myself because we are vertically integrated, but I think this is more like a marketing piece component. People love to know that you grow your own tobacco, that you're able to keep consistency, that the blend's not going to change in the future because you control your tobacco. Those are very important selling tools. But the reality is that I think relationship, because not everybody can. We sell tobacco to other people, right? So we sell tobacco. I know some of these guys they're ready to disclose. We sell tobacco for a lot of the players who got a lot of awards and Cigar of the Year and stuff. They use some of our tobacco because they trust us, right? And they make, well, look at Ernesto Carrillo, who just won the Cigar of the Year. He doesn't grow a single leaf. But what does Ernesto have that not everybody have? Is relationships. So he can go to a specific supplier and say, I want the tobacco grown this way. I want this amount of months of fermentation, and that's exactly the prime that I want from that tobacco, and build like long-term relationships. Actually, I think, again, I'm just trying to demystify this thing. I as much as actually, why we grow our own leaves, because Pichardo is passionate for agriculture, and I'm passionate as well. So we do it, and we try to be strategic too. So we grow tobacco that we need to control, that we need to have our hands on, that we cannot, like right now, there's a big shortage of tobacco in Nicaragua because of the growing demand in the United States, and fortunately, because we control, we can have it. Of course, people who don't have the relationships and don't have the control, they're struggling to deliver. But again, I think there are great companies who don't grow their own tobacco, are not vertical, and I mentioned a couple of them here. And there are many companies who who are completely vertically integrated and are great companies as well. So I don't think it's a dogma.
I love the way you demystify and explain that particular component of the industry. And I believe that the way you phrased it, being in control does not necessarily mean you have to do it all by yourself, but find the right people for the right things, and then make sure that holistically it all comes together the way you ultimately want it to be.
Yeah.
So when you speak about,
Do you
pardon,
want me to demystify? Do you want me to demystify something even? I think it's gonna maybe blow your mind. The largest cigar companies in the world, all the brands are under Imperial Cigars or Altaris or General Cigars or Altria, which is the same as Philip Morris's. Most of them, I mean, all of them, the tobacco that they use, they are not landowners. And they're not even growers. So they finance other farmers to grow their tobacco, or they have the purchase power to go and say, hey, you grow this tobacco for me, and this is the specifications. I want one of my engineers there, but actually that tobacco is not being grown by them. So, see, it's funny, you know, even like the biggest companies, they don't have that much verticalization as we think.
Great point. So with the tobaccos that you would say are quintessential to the Pichardo operation and to Ace Prime on a larger level, what are the specific characteristics that you're looking for, and what makes those tobaccos unique? Is it the way you handle the seeds? Every single component, I guess, because there's so many variables that you need to optimize. But what, in your opinion, are those little gold nuggets with the specific tobaccos that you grow yourself?
It's an interesting question. I'm thinking here. I think also it's not an easy question. You have very good and tough questions. I think there's several components, as you said, you know, from the tobacco, from the seeds that's been used, all these elements, they are all important, you know. But I think the human factor is the most important. Sometimes we think that anyone, and I see a lot of guys doing that, so I'm going to retire, or he's an ex-military, or if he's a cigar shop owner, it says, no, I'm going to create my cigar company, and you're going to start a cigar company. I think there is an important factor that sometimes you forget. If you don't have the proper height, you cannot be a basketball player. Or if you don't have the height, you got to be really fast, or you got to shoot really well. So you got to have some skill sets to be able to be a sports athlete. Like my daughter, she plays water polo, and I went to the pool one day with her, and she's on a almost pro level. And I was like, how can you swim so fast? You know, like, how can you do this? She's prepared, you know, she's training, and she has the physical. If you look at or it's the same thing as someone that just retired or something, and he wants to kind of do an engineering job without having engineering school. So I think the human factor is probably, I believe, the golden nuggets. I think it's not everybody, and I know it's another tough thing to say, not so popular, but it's not everybody who's a super taster, or who is able to. And you from the wine world, I did my sommelier course, and one of my professors said it's not everybody who will be able to get an L3. It's just not everybody has the same mental brain wiring. People are different, you know, and I think there are extremely talented people, human beings out there who are able to taste and put together something that would be impactful, that people will smoke it and feel like, wow, this is a good cigar. And I can tell you that the human factor is so important that even if you don't have good tobacco, even if you don't have good tobacco and you know how to build a blend and play with, you can somehow hide some sins of the tobacco here and there, and create something unique or creative or develop. So the human factor is definitely the golden nugget. I see a lot of people just creating companies out there and they have no clue what they're doing because they don't have that human factor. And it's weird to say this, I'm saying this, you know, in a very humble way here. I'm not saying that I have, like, you know, I'm the perfect skill set to make cigars. Well, I actually have this disease that haunts me since I was a baby. You know, I hear sounds, I see colors, I taste things. So I have actually a lot of headache because of that. So I have the synesthesia issue. The good thing that it's that although I suffer a lot with that package came a more sensitive palate, which sometimes you can think, oh, that's why he's such a good blender. Actually, I have to reprogram my brain because it throws me off all the time. So if I smoke something that will somehow cause an impression in my brain, which, let's say, a unpleasant tobacco, an unpleasant flavor, or something that I ate that I just cannot blend. I just cannot do it. So I'm very restrict into what I can do sometimes because of that disease. But at the same time, I'm trying to use that skill set to create different blends that people will enjoy. You know, like Pichardo has this amazing skill set for fermentation. He knows just by getting the tobacco, putting it in your mouth and smelling it, and he knows if the tobacco is ready or not, if the fermentation is on the right point or not. He has that kind of brain that can think holistically about the cigar production in general. And so there are many out there, you know. You see like Adele Fernandez, good friend of mine. You see Skip Martin. You see who else? Amilcar that works with Rocky Patel there in Esteli. So these guys, they have this amazing talent. They can do blend. Ernesto, is there any bigger talent than Ernesto on this planet? And that's the living proof that the human factor is the most important aspect of element of a success of a product.
I'm a synesthete myself, and I can very much relate to what you're describing here. Uh, for me, one way to go about it or to work with it is that's what I call experience design, because I try to reverse engineer the perceptive nature of what it is that I'm experiencing. And to me, every cigar has a soundtrack, has a pattern, like a color to it. And that's where I believe the cigar industry could also benefit from people thinking more holistically as to what the smoking experience can be. And that's so much more than just tobacco leaves being rolled into a slender vitola. And when you, I think that's also a core foundation of pairing, which I consider a very overused term, whereas it's actually the experience that matters on a really holistic level.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny you say this, but uh, the best uh, the best things I experienced in my life were things where I have almost all my senses involved. So I remember, and it's very rare, but I remember having the perfect meal with the perfect wine and the perfect pre-meal cigar, and then with the perfect cigar for that meal, and the perfect after meal, the dessert drink, and with the perfect cigar afterwards, and the perfect conversation. So even the even the theme of the conversation and the person you are smoking or talking to, and the subject of the conversation influences the outcome of the entire experience. If you pay attention, actually, it's another human factor of experiencing smoking cigars that people underrate. It's who you smoke with and what you do when you're smoking a cigar. What's your state of mind? A lot of people joke about drinks. You know, you drink to forget and you drink to celebrate, right? So you always have a reason to drink. Um, I disagree with that. I think it's a fun thing to say, uh, I do understand sometimes you do have to kind of get lost sometimes and just kind of, forget things. But, at the end of the day, it's always escape. But with cigars, I can see myself pissed at something or angry at something or uncomfortable with something and smoking a cigar. I think no matter how good the cigar is, it's going to be a terrible experience for me.
How do you factor that into the creative process then? Do you blend for specific occasions? Do you have a particular taste profile in mind? Or with Mildias, for example, I know there's always other people involved, but how do you take everything that you were just describing and then try to culminate and bring it all together in that one quintessential piece?
Uh, Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think so. The way I'm going to answer this, I think you understand clearly. Most of the companies, no matter product they create, they would first create the product in their imaginary. They will imagine the product and they'll give a name to the product. So usually, and sometimes we have to do that. I have a client, so let's say we have crown heads, and John is thinking about launching something for 2022, and he has a name for the product. He has a feeling for the cigar. He even has a song that he listens to that he wants to actually create a blend just for that song, just for that experience. So that's his creative process, which I admire a lot. I think he does an amazing job creating products, by the way. But my creative process is a little different. So I blend first, and then when I think a blend is worth of a name, then I create the product. So answer your question, for me, uh, just like Fiat Lux, which is the cigar I'm smoking right now, which is going to be our main launch at the PCA together with the Sergeant. This is a cigar that had no name until 6 months ago, but it's a cigar I've been working on for at least 2 years. But there was no name for the cigar, and the name came afterwards because the journey helped me develop the name and how we're going to market. The journey was extremely important, especially in this cigar. Now I did the opposite with the Sergeant. Like with the Sergeant, I was inspired by a story, just like John's process. I was inspired by a story by a good friend of mine. And a lot of people think it's about his military background. It has to do with the military, of course. The name is called the Sergeant, but it was about his altruistic heart. It was because that guy that I had the privilege of spending the last 15, 20 years with, on my friendship circle. I saw him doing acts of altruism that I've never seen any other human being doing for his family, for his friends. I was going beyond, and later, maybe 10 years after knowing Brian, I came to know of all the ribbons and medals and courageous things that guy did to save other people's lives in combat. So that message for me was extremely powerful. And then I said, I need to make a cigar for guys like that go anonymous. People don't talk about. People talk about the high rank officers in all the military branches all over the world. But usually the sergeant is the guy who never gets the credit, and it's the guy who puts his ass in a line all the time. So I wanted to create a cigar for that guy. So it was harder because actually I had to deliver. So it was, man, I'm going to make this cigar. It's going to be called the Sergeant. So what's the Bitola? And what's going to be the blend? What's going to taste like? And it was a different journey for me, which I enjoy doing as well. But most of the cigars that I personally create, it's the opposite. And I think Pichardo is the same way. Pichardo is the one who blended all the Pichardo Reserva Familiar and the Classicals and some of the MXSs. Pichardo also, when he thinks something is worthy of a name, then he goes for. Oh, let's do an extension line. We have the right cigar now.
In that sense, is it easier for you to work on other people's projects where somebody approaches you with an idea and proposes a specific theme or a profile, and then you work together with them in order to achieve that? Or is it truly that starting from scratch and building up that little seed from the very beginning, nurturing it until it finally blossoms into a wonderful product?
So I'm going to answer your question as we started. I have an unsettling soul. So if it's comfortable, it's not good for me. So if that doesn't take me out of my comfort zone, then it's absolutely no good. Then I find no fun. If it's too easy, it's no fun. I think when we started the interview, you said if I have found myself or found my place in the cigar industry, coming from different backgrounds, I think I'm happy because I haven't. I think that's the right answer. And I haven't, and I have. You know, it's as much paradoxical as it sounds. If I haven't, it's because I have.
And so maybe you also always need that slight, I wouldn't dare say challenge, but uncertainty maybe in a particular way, to not feel entirely at home yet, because it still nurtures some of that creative element where you feel like there's still things to do and there's still other things to accomplish because you're not there yet.
I don't believe it's a place to go. That's exactly it. I don't believe that even home is a place to go. I actually got challenged with this question, and I asked myself, and I had a hard time. I even cried when I had that experience where I confronted, the fact that I was being a terrible father. I asked myself, especially being a family that we always lived in different countries, we always kind of travel a lot. So where is home? Where is home for me? Like when I go to Italy, and I speak Italian, they say I have an accent. When I go to Brazil and I speak Portuguese, they say I have an accent. I have an accent in English. I don't even have a mother language anymore. So I was confronted with that question. Where is home? Where is home? So home is where my family is. Like home is where I am with my wife and my kids, or now that my daughter got married with my younger kid, that's home for me. So I think home it's somewhere inside of us, where no matter where you are, you're happy. You don't depend in a specific house built a certain way. And I know people are different. I understand that some people need that. They need to retire in the place, or sometimes even the city where they lived in their entire lives, or they want to retire by the ocean, or they have like this goal that happiness, it's a place, or it's somewhere I go. I actually even police myself not to think that way, just because I am wired that way. I'm not happy with staying in one place. I don't know if that makes sense. So
Very much so.
That's why it's impossible for me to tell you that I already found that place, but at the same time, I'm not unhappy. It's not that I am uncomfortable. It's not that I am disliking the life I'm living. It's the opposite. It's because that puts me in this uncomfortable zone, is that I find myself extremely happy and probably more creative as well. So you need, I know it's very cheesy, but no pain, no gain. It's so true, and we're always going to leave with pain no matter what. So why don't embrace it and just make something good out of it, and you only experience inner peace and calmness and the amazing feeling of realization, accomplishment, when you go through a process, when you are confronted with difficulties, when you overcome them. That's why it's in our very pain that our most success are dependable, related to.
Now, Luciano, you probably wouldn't believe how much I can relate to everything that you described, and I believe that this is the case because when you went through so many struggles in life and hurdles that you had to overcome. It puts you in a very different
Mm-hmm.
state of mind, I believe. And I really think from deepest of heart that this is the very nature of people who had to face severe challenges, that you ultimately end up in that state of mind. What what always strikes me is, I almost find the cigar industry to be the perfect expression of exactly that. Also because it's an industry that is challenged in so many different ways by so many different entities and players that are around that. Can you relate to that, or do you think that the cigar industry is a perfect place for people who think that way because of its very nature?
I think so. I think you nail it. I think the nature of the cigar business is a very challenging business. It's not easy. There's so many components, and we talked about some of them. You know, from the right seed to the right soil to the right angle of the sun. You know, for the right minerality. You know, geology is involved, and then the fermentation process, and then you know, climate challenges, storage challenges, production challenges, the human factor. Every single cigar is made by human hands. I remember when Arsenio Ramos, one of my mentors, used to say that. He said, I don't have one factory. I have 72 factories." He was referring to the 72 employees that worked at his factory because it's a handmade product. Like I'm smoking a cigar here. This one, the construction is not exactly the same. If it's in the bottom layer of the box, maybe got a little more fermentation than the upper part if it's sitting there for too long, or the humidity is different. There's so many aspects, so many things that you have to face and challenges that you have to face. I also remember when a very good friend of mine, who's very well known, made an amazing cigar. He launched his line, which now is very popular. I'm not going to mention names because I don't want this. This has a double-sided sword here. He made a cigar, and one of his bunchers got mad at him, and he got one, you know, those big lighters, and the guy bunched the lighter inside the cigar, just to kind of and try to imagine if you guys, some of you are working the panel for Cigar Journal, but try to imagine if you receive a cigar to rate, and then you're smoking the cigar, and suddenly that cigar catches on fire because of all the plastic that's in there. And then you take something weird, or the cigar is plugged, then you open, you see there's a lighter inside that if it had butane couldn't explode in your mouth and cause loss. Try to imagine that situation. You have the human factor too. If you don't treat people with decency, you know, we'll come back at you. You know, you have to be careful with that too. You gotta have a very good quality control. There's so many things, brother, that really, when you get into this industry, you have to have in mind that the challenges are huge. And you're absolutely right. That excites me a lot.
In that essence, I also think that, and the way you phrased it is so interesting and refreshing. When we think about terroir, that quintessential expression from the wine world, we probably overlook the human aspect of terroir that factors into the overall equation.
Totally. Also, I got this question last night in a different interview. They asked me, like, you know, how long is the tobacco season? I said, well, it's all year long. We only plant tobacco for 4 months, but it's all year long, because the other 8 months we are preparing the terroir. We are preparing the soil. So you have to cultivate something else, beans or corn. We've got to make sure, you know, the soil is renewed. There's more nitrogen in the soil. You have to incorporate all that into the soil and treat the soil for the next year. So it's actually more, believe it or not, I think it's as labor intensive as doing the tobacco season. So it's another very important element you brought up too.
I'm fascinated.
I'm fascinated by the questions. I think, and I have so many good friends that do a lot of shows and blogs and stuff. And I don't mean, I'm not doing this just because I'm at your show. I'm being completely honest with you. I think you are the best interview I've ever had. So it's been awesome. Enjoying the questions and enjoying the opportunity to speak about things that I normally don't talk about.
It means so much, Luciano, and I mean, this is the nature of the Light 'em Up family, I believe, and what I would love to kindly bring and most humbly bring to the cigar industry and the community, because I truly believe that it's all about the people and getting to know you through your answers and your philosophical thoughts is revealing in the most wonderful way, and it will probably tell us all so much about you as a person, your approach, and how you think about creating those products, that probably gives us so much more than just talking about filler binder and wrapper, or some of the other technical components that are so important, but probably information that's either out there and people can read it if they want to, but there's so much more behind it that actually differentiates us all, while at the same time brings us all together again.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it. I think you providing a great service to our industry, and I hope the audience grows more and more. People need more of that. The people again, everybody's is craving reality, craving truth. Uh, sometimes we think that what will bring peace and unity to humanity is just common grounds and people just talking about what they agree with. I think it's about people being willing to listen to each other and just like really dive into a little more deep conversations too. I think that especially new generations, that's what they want. I think there's a misreading uh, component to how even sociologists they read society today when they talk about the millennials generations to our how they call it now, X's, whatever generation we live to, we have today, that they are superficial, that they are actually it's the opposite. I think that that expression shows exactly how much they are thirsty of getting deeper and deeper and more and dive a little more into what really matters. You know, subjects that are relevant to our world, to our society today. So I think again, I'm hammering the same point. I think legitimacy, honesty, truth, ethics, uh, kindness, ultimately love. Uh, as much as it might sound naive, in my opinion, is what will change this world. Will change any industry. Will impact any industry here and beyond.
And still, it's so fascinating how the humble cigar has this unique ability and power of bringing all these components to life, and it's sort of, we all wrap these thoughts into the humble cigar, and that's the common denominator that brings us all together, which is fascinating.
Yes. Yes. Amen.
Luciano, I want to be most respectful of your time and everybody else's time, but maybe as a follow-up question to everything that you shared, and brings us to the end of our show as well. I have to say I'm fascinated by your ambition and your exceptional role model when taking care not only of your own people and workers, but also the local community, and extending those thoughts of positivity and taking care of each other through the manufacturing countries, the industry on the larger level, and the local communities. How do you think that we all can maybe do a better job at bringing people together, creating those meaningful conversations, and providing something and creating something for the greater good, and not just the industry that we all love so much?
I think you are the answer to that question. I think doing what you are doing is exactly what will create change. Asking the right questions, provoking the right thoughts, and really making people think. You know, I think we sometimes we got trapped. And again, it's nothing wrong with looking into a cigar and looking to the beauty and to the artistic aspect of the cigar, and even like what people like to call luxury. I think I like to look at luxury as an extreme expression of beauty, of something that it's pleasant. You know, uh, it's part of that sensorial experience that we're talking about. But there is other elements. They're not excludants. I mean, I think there is this dilemma, like if I start thinking about the poverty in Nicaragua and how the workers, if I start thinking about how the workers are struggling in certain farms there, and it's almost like I cannot smoke the cigar, man. This is actually, uh, we should learn how to admire beauty without denying where that beauty is coming from. I think it's valuing the human aspect. Maybe it's the message of this afternoon for me, because I always learn also when I'm talking to people, being asked questions. So I think what I might take out today is that the human factor is probably the most underrated factor that humans uh, underrate. So it's quite an oxymoron, but uh, I think what you're doing is extremely valuable to this industry. It might be a small candle, still you're not a loud voice yet, but you're going to inspire more and more people to do the same. And I'll give an example. I know like Bear, if you know Bear Duplessis from El Oso Fumar. So that's a guy who always have his heart in this industry. These guys all have a second jobs and stuff. So they do what they do out of passion, and Bear is all about finding that beauty and also bringing the best out of people, bring awareness to causes that he believes are important to this industry as well. So he's always involved in that spectrum. So is Coop as well, William Cooper from Cigar Coop. I mean, the guys from How About That Cigar, Matt and Garrett. So all these guys, they're on the right track, and I think with all of us working together, we can make this industry so much better, so much better. Uh, the pragmatic thinking for any business owner, a cigar maker, is I gotta sell it. Of course, this business needs to be sustainable. I want to sell it as much as I can, so I can create more jobs, so I can create new products, so we can continue to do what we do. But you just cannot do that and forget everything else, because everything is connected. It comes in one package. The people, the souls involved, the marketing, and being truthful to what you sell, being truthful to what you do, as well as creativity, as well as good tobacco, as well as good people. So everything is extremely, all the elements are extremely important to this industry. And I think you're doing a great service just by providing quality information, asking the right questions. I think your mission it's to ask the right questions, and you're asking them all.
I cannot thank you enough for the kind words, but most importantly, I cannot thank you enough for your service and everything that you bring to the industry. Because just through the conversation we're now honored to share with you, and everything that you shared with us, it gives us all an idea of what the cigar world is all about, and how we can all as a global community come together a little closer. And that sort of brings me full circle to the very first question that I asked you, and the way you answered it and re-answered it throughout the session. That it's that journey, it's that process, and I think when we can all acknowledge and treasure that path is truly home for us. I think it's a wonderful a wonderful thing, a wonderful message, and I'm truly fortunate to have shared that with you. And what a wonderful moment! Thank you so much for providing us with everything that you presented us with. And Luciano, I know you'll be headed to Las Vegas in just a few hours. So many thanks for still taking the time and sitting down together with all of us here at the Light 'em Up family and community. And I cannot wait to come and see you in a couple of hours on the other side of the pond and shake your hand and smoke a cigar with you. It's been my pleasure, my privilege, and my honor. Thank you so much.
I am looking forward to. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you to your audience. It's nice to see all these faces here in a lounge, and getting to know more people. Maybe the last few seconds of our interview, I will talk about our cigars. So Fiat Lux, it's one of our lounges, and we have the Sergeant, which I don't have here in my hands. You could get it, but also we launching. We actually not launched because we launched this before, but this is going to be on a sampler. Also, it's a new Pichardo called the Pichardo Natural. It's part of the classic line that's out there. So come and see us. We're going to be at booth 925. You're more than welcome to stop by. And Crown Heads and Ace Prime have amazing products and new releases to share with you all.
So much looking forward to it.
That's all.
Luciano, many thanks. All the very best to you. And we'll see each other in Vegas. Many thanks.
Sounds very good. Thank you.